Discover the Women in Tech Trailblazers podcast, hosted by Tiffany, Benitez, and Jordan Franklin. Here, the complexities of being a woman in the tech industry are unraveled through discussions on key issues, personal growth, and how to succeed despite systematic challenges. It's a source of empowerment and inspiration for all women at all stages of their tech careers. We are so excited that you are back today with us. I am trying to contain my excitement on what we are getting ready to experience today. We have lots of amazing guests on our show, but we have an honor here today. And we have Tharuna Niranjan, and I am going to tell you a little bit about her, but I want to tell you, slightly a girl fan, have been crushing on you a little bit. I only get to see you on LinkedIn. I've never met you in person, but Jordan and I talk about you a lot. So I am super grateful and honored that you were able to join us today. So a little bit about her. She is a seasoned leader with over 20 years of experience in tech. Women in tech. She specializes in building complex systems at scale, always with a sharp focus on the user. That's huge, especially from a tech perspective. Currently, she is the Senior Director of the Payments and Fraud Platform at Walmart Global Tech. And previously, she made significant strides at YouTube and Google, driving growth and innovation by leading cross-functional teams to launch 0-to-1 products such as YouTube Premium, one of my favorites, music and TV subscription services. Beyond her professional achievements, she is deeply committed to making a positive impact in her community, one of the big reasons we have her here today. She is passionate about empowering women and girls in technology, volunteers with TechBridge Girls, Girls Who Code, and serves on the board of Woodside Vaulters, an organization dedicated to training girls in international equestrian sports. And one of my favorite pieces, she is an avid believer and operates in servant leadership, really empowering her teams, and is dedicated to mentoring young women in tech. So welcome to the episode. We are so excited to have you here today.
Welcome.
The honor is all mine because I look up to you ladies, and as I was saying before, I'm amazed at how you are making the space and time for other women to learn and grow. And that is super important. Making the time is the hard part. And I'm honored to be here where you're actually giving the space, taking the time, showing up every day for others.
Well, thank you. And we were talking right before, like we always do, right before we press record. And I was saying how much it means. It's just a couple of sentences of you recognizing that we've taken the time to do something that we felt was important. Other people are joining in and thinking it's important too. But taking the time to say, hey, that really spoke to me, or that was a great topic, is something that we get sometimes, but being intentional about that is huge, right? And it's so it makes someone feel so good being on the receiving end, but it's also really nice just to say it, right? Like when you're the one doling out the kudos, it's fun too. So I'm gonna kick us off like I always do after the bio. Our word that we kind of decided at the beginning of this podcast that we really wanted to understand what everyone's definition of it was is authenticity. And so we always start all of our podcasts with, what does authenticity mean to you?
That's a great word. And authenticity can mean so many things to so many people. And it is a really hard storytelling narrative. But to me, I strongly believe that authenticity is about having the space to tell your story, feeling empowered to own your story, and the courage to live your story. So it ties into vulnerability, empowerment, and integrity. It involves embracing who you are, including your strengths and weaknesses, and creating that space for others. It's the hardest thing to do. It takes time. But most importantly, it needs your village to show up for you. You can't do this alone. This is why I think networking and building relationships is key for creating your safe space so you can be your authentic self.
Oh, I totally agree with that. I think something that you hit really well was it's integrity, and it takes a village. It doesn't just take a village to raise a family. It takes a village to raise yourself in the way you want to present yourself to the world, right? Like collaborating on not only clothes, but what next step I should do. That, I mean, we call it multiple different things, right? We call it collaborating, mentorship, lots of different things. But all of those is what creates one perfect human being, right? Perfection in your own right. Like, you love yourself. You can show up as yourself to any event that you're going to. I love that definition.
I loved the strengths and weaknesses, because I know that sounds super cliche. Like, we talk about strengths and weaknesses, but I think what we actually don't talk about as much is the weaknesses. And we're really good at like, I'm strong at this and strong at this and strong at this. But if you don't also know what your weaknesses are, how do you ever make sure that you're operating in your strengths? How do you make sure you're either learning and growing to navigate through some of that? You're building a powerhouse team around you that's really good. Jordan and I talk about this a lot. Like, some people are good at vision, some people are good at execution. Like, if you're a visionary, you need a team that executes, right? And so it's like really understanding what your weaknesses are super powerful as well. And then along with that, strengths and weaknesses, in order to really navigate your career and your path, you really need to know both of those. And so I kind of want to talk a little bit about your career path and your journey, and not necessarily like, I worked at A, B, and C. We heard a little bit of that, but as you're talking about this authenticity, as you're talking about your networks, as you're talking about, you know, your journey in general, talk to us a little bit of, listen, there's 28% of us. Okay. So we're not the domination at this point. We're getting there. We will get there. But talk to me a little bit about being a woman in tech. What has that looked like, being a woman of color in tech, and really what that journey has looked like for you?
My journey in tech started with a simple curiosity. I took a summer course in programming in high school, and then I fell in love, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I am an introvert. I was even more so. And I felt so comfortable working with computers, and I was fascinated by that world, and I wanted to learn more. But my journey at the same time, same as several women we've heard from, wasn't an easy one. At every step of the way, I was looked at and immediately dismissed as, maybe she's not technical. Maybe she doesn't know the complexities in scaling this architecture. This is too complex. We're designing complex systems. What I quickly realized is that the only way to navigate this hurdle is by addressing it based on the technical merits, leaving the personalities at the door. I used to have this mantra: come into the meeting room with only the technical merits and not your egos, not my ego. I'm going to walk into the room and I'm going to discuss just based on my technical expertise. Because I strongly believe everyone is smart comes from a place of the best of intentions. So I try not to take that personally and then answer to the situation with technical expertise. Soon you build that street creds that you are a domain expert. And then eventually I learned to meet people where they are. So I would say my tech journey not only taught me how to work with computers, I think most importantly, taught me how to work with people.
Yeah. Well, and like, was there a certain moment in time where you were like, this is going to be tough? There's not a lot of people higher above me that look like me. I don't, you know, like those kind of things, you know, like I was having a conversation with a gentleman yesterday, and he was saying that girls make their decision on if they're going to be good at math, science, what they're going to be good at around fourth grade, right? And we're not even starting to introduce the idea. I mean, we are with girls in tech, right? Like we go down to third grade, even younger because my daughter shows up and she's in first grade. But like in our schools, we're not even teaching that until later. And you're telling me that our daughters have already made decisions on what they think they're good at by 10? Like, that's crazy to me. So obviously that needs to change. But what would you say was, I mean, you can respond to that too. I'm going to ask a follow-up question. What do you say was like your pivotal moment that you said, it doesn't matter if anyone's above me. I know I can do it. What was that moment for you?
Yeah, that's so true. Because if you see role models who look like you can aspire to, and you see the path light up. If you don't see that, you're basically trying to navigate a path in the dark. And it's very important to find the right people to support you.
Right.
Also, like you're saying, young girls are starting to think a certain way, and that starts in preschool, in kindergarten, in elementary school. How we teach our kids, both young girls and boys, sometimes, and I've had this personally in my own experience, I feel like I'm not good enough until I'm perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And then I slowly pivoted that narrative and told myself, perfect is the enemy of good. It's the imposter syndrome that we all grow up with.
Yeah.
We need to take it, handle it, address it head on and say, you are not an imposter. I am not an imposter. I am learning. I will get there. I don't have to be perfect to knock on the door.
I think you had another really good point. You talked about coming into those meetings, really setting aside everything other than what we're there for. So bringing your technical experience and acumen in. So I think another thing is like, at some point, your talk is not going to get you that far, right? Like your relationships and your talk, and they're great. But in the tech world, it is not going to get you very far. What is going to get you very far is that you consistently come into the room, know and understand, and speak to technical expertise and depth in a way that will not get you dismissed. Because the reality is you could be the smartest executive coming into from the best company in the world until you come in and establish yourself at that place. And with, again, you're starting from nothing. Like these people like might have seen you on LinkedIn or heard about you through someone, but they have not actually experienced your technical depth, understanding, and how you really are able to play off of those strengths. So it is important that you do understand what it is that you're coming to talk about, that you understand the technical depth, and that you can speak as such, because it's really what gives you your, okay, we call it like the street cred, but the tech cred. Let's call it the tech cred, right? And it's really important in this industry that you navigate that. Otherwise, you will be dismissed from rooms, you'll be dismissed from opportunities, jobs. So it's really, really important. Invest in yourself. Like, take the time, invest in yourself, get some certifications, start running in circles that are more technical so you can really start to build what it is. And again, it's not like trying to get acceptance. It's not trying to strive for something that you're not, but it's also those types of things that allow you to hush that imposter syndrome, right? Like, if you just say you're not an imposter, but also you haven't done anything to invest in yourself this year, how much are you going to believe that you're not an imposter?
Yeah, that goes hand in hand. I mean, you are investing in yourself, taking the time to be the technical expert, and then you say, I got this. I don't need to be more perfect. I can walk into the room. But what's also important, I think, is giving back. So at this phase in my journey, I feel as women leaders, it's important for us to call out the quiet person and say, hey, I know you have something to contribute to this discussion. I know you had a technical solution to that you wanted to talk about, giving them the space to do that, because there's so many folks in the room. Sometimes the quiet person doesn't get to talk about their brilliant idea. So as senior leaders and as part of giving back, it's all the small things that add up. And it's as part of the giving back, you make space for the voices that are quiet to be heard.
I love that. And okay, so let's talk a little bit about, I know you've got a lot of strengths, but one of your key strengths are really understanding creating a network, right? And that's kind of our episode today, is really creating a network that works. And I will tell you, I think a lot of us build networks, but just like anything you do in business, you need to have a strategy around that, right? Like you really need to be able to navigate and strategize around what network you're building, where you're tapping into. We talked about, we don't have a ton of energy. Like none of us have a ton of extra time and energy sitting in reserve. So how do you really invest in particular networks? And really for you, right, if we talk about how we leverage, especially in tech, right, our networks to really foster things like you're talking about, mentorship, collaboration, innovation, how do you do that?
Let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, Women in Technology of Northwest Arkansas and Gumption at my-gumption.com for their support. Their contributions are critical in bringing these meaningful conversations to you. Stick around for more engaging discussions right after this break.
The key is the people, right? The key to building your network is finding the right people that can support you, that can uplift you. And I can't emphasize this enough. It's a hard work to build a network. And there is a component of these are my goals, these are my desired outcomes, this is why I want to do this. But getting the right people in your network to support you. And as you rightly said, time is a precious resource. We all are constrained by it. We don't have the time. So how do you make use of the limited time that you have at hand? And I would say selective networking is the way to go. It's not about going broad net. It may seem like an endless cycle of adding contacts to your LinkedIn and then trying to reach out to them when you want to do something. It's almost counterintuitive. It's an anti-pattern where you say, I'm going to focus on the people that I want to surround myself with. I'm going to make sure that it aligns with my goals and values. And most importantly, I'm going to make space to give back because I want to be able to do the same to my network that I want the support from. So I am a big proponent of design thinking, and this is how I look at it. There's a learning phase. Go broad, explore all possible paths, reach out broadly. And then comes the training phase where you need to have a framework to make your decisions. You need to have a framework to decide, do I want to do this or do I want to do this? And that framework should align with your goals and values.
Yeah.
And once you have that in place, there's the outcomes phase. And in the outcomes phase, you kind of learn what's working for you, what's not. You go deep, you nurture your relationships. If something's not working, fail early, fail fast. Same for product launches, same for growing as a person.
Yeah.
Map it to your goals. And when I say desired outcomes, I don't mean, oh, I want a job and I'm going to go to my network or try and build it. No. It's almost like, what do I want from my network? And focus on the people that can support me, focus on the relationships that can uplift me. It's almost like, how can I help my network help me?
Yeah.
And there I can't emphasize it enough because building a network is hard work. And you want to make sure you're energized by it, that it's the right thing for you and the right thing for your network. And giving back is the best way to make sure your network's invested in you is by investing in them.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. I love networking. I think I have to in my line of work is talking to people all day long, every day about technology. But I love networking. I used to give a speech on network equals net worth because it is the better your network. Like if you do need a job, they're going to help. If you do need advice, they're going to help. And I swear nobody ever has enough time for it, right? But if you also keep your eyes open during the times that you could be sleeping on the plane, in an airport, whatever, you never know that fate could have sat your next mentor or mentee next to you on that plane. I mean, I was coming back from DC a month ago, and the gentleman next to me on the plane must have told me what his level was, but I don't remember until I got off the plane and he added me to LinkedIn. And we literally just had coffee this week. He's an SVP at a large organization, and he took the time to have coffee with me. Poor guy didn't even get his AirPods in his ear for the 3-hour flight. Like, we talked the whole time. But taking those opportunities and just like, it's a quick assessment. Like you said, either you're aligned with my goals and my values, right? Or you're not, but you can feel that out in a person pretty quickly. And you might be surprised that the person that got sat next to you was a perfect person to add to your network. So, I mean, taking those opportunities too, just to be able to say, hey, I know I could sleep, or the person sitting next to me could, become a new mentor or mentee of mine, and I can give back or gain some insights that I didn't have. Not even in technology, like it could be a cross-functional thing, right? If you keep your eyes open, I think sometimes those things, just nuggets of gold, come out of it too. But I had to pipe in because when you said that, I was like, oh,
I love it. I think it's very important to not only look narrowly in your field, but also look elsewhere, because you don't know where your next opportunity is going to present itself.
Right.
And what I think from what you said, what my key takeaway is having that diverse thoughts, inputs, relationships actually make us better at what we do.
Absolutely. And I also think like keeping your humble, right? Like you said, walking into the room and owning what you know. Being humble doesn't mean that you can't be like the smartest person in the room. You're just humble about it, right? There's a way to do that and still come in and really be tactful. But also whenever you're meeting new people, like keeping that humble, he could have been a complete butt, right? And nicest person, but he was the absolute nicest person, listened and chatted for 3 hours, and then opened time up on his calendar in December to meet someone that might want a new mentor, right? Which was amazing. But taking that and saying, hey, I can do that. I can be humble. I can do that for somebody else and push it forward also helps your network, because you never know who's going to pour into you when you most need it.
It's also a responsibility. And I know you guys hear me talk about this a lot in different circles, but we all have a responsibility. So that guy didn't have to do that. But if you are actually a true leader, so let's be clear that leaders have nothing to do with titles, right? Leader is how you carry yourself and how you act and operate, no matter what your title is. But there is a responsibility as a leader, so I just said that's all of us, right? To make space and to create time and opportunities and environments that are places where people can learn about that can learn about us, that we can learn from each other, that we have to make time. We've also heard a theme in today's episode. None of us have time, okay? Like, we don't have time, but you make time for what's important and what matters to you. And listen, y'all, also, we talked about earlier in the episode about you need the whole community and tribe, and you need your village. Y'all, this does not happen without us locking arms. And I'm going to say this in the most direct way possible. Y'all know I don't sugarcoat very well, but ladies, we're going to have to put aside our insecurities, our jealousy, our petty bettiness. Okay, so petty Betty, we're not doing that anymore. Because if we realize the power that will happen, if we will actually stop doing that and lock arms and start working together, we won't even be talking about 28%. And it won't even be like a long time that we actually have to make it, but it means that we're going to have to start creating this space. It means we're going to have to be mentors. It means we're going to have to be sponsors, and that's going to take intentionality. Like, we can have conversations all day long, but until we start like putting some execution and action behind it, and it's not like you have to add something to your list. It's not like you have to build a whole performance plan around it. Just authentically operate in the fact that I care about other people and want to make space for them. Yeah. Do you talk to us about you talked about networking and being strategic about it. What kind of networks would you suggest? And I'm not necessarily even referring to, although you can mention particular names of groups, but how do women even start finding support networks and groups that they want to be intentional and connect with?
That's a great question, because it's always the first step that's the hardest, right? And many times, and I've done this too, it's really hard for us to reach out, to speak up, to ask, hey, I want this, where do I start? Or can you help me? Can you be my mentor? And just have a connect with someone who you think could be your potential sponsor. That's the hardest step. So I would say all of the things we talked about, technical expertise, so that you have the creds and you become visible because of that. And focus on shared interests. I start with women in tech, women in product, but I also started by giving back. I know I have a good job in tech. I always wanted to go to middle school and high school students and give back and give them an opportunity to engage in conversations and technical solutions and hackathons. I think giving back is a great way to get started. Focus on your shared interests. In my journey, I went seeking for other women who look like me, women who don't look like me, in tech, in product, based on the shared interests. But I would also say what's important is to have different types of people giving you that input. And I lean on my running community or my music community, because those kinds of diverse inputs that make me grow and do better in my current role, rather than narrow the scope to I will only talk to folks who are in my field. I will go seek out folks that can nourish my soul and other interests and have that village show up for me as well.
I love
I
that.
love it.
I absolutely love that. And I mean, are there any specific groups of people that, I mean, obviously women in tech, but are there any other specific groups of people that you would say that you found to be homey or a good place to go?
Yeah, actually on Facebook and not anymore, but then on LinkedIn, there are shared interest groups that you can plug into, and maybe initially you kind of take a step back and see how things are going, and then take the step forward, make yourself known, make your voice heard. I'd say going to conferences, I think, is really important because that way you get that in-person connection. Because otherwise, everything's online. And you get that in-person connection. I always believe in having a coffee chat because it's informal. And then when you even reach out to folks on LinkedIn, don't go asking for that big thing. Hey, I'm looking for a job. Here's my resume. No.
Right.
And you say, hey, I was at this conference where you were speaking, and I really am very aligned. What you said resonated with me. Here's my addition to it, or here's my question on it. Give them a very simple action item to respond to you. Compelling, but simple. Not a big ask. Don't start with big asks, because that's a big hurdle and you're not going to move past it. But you can also connect on, for example, on LinkedIn, we were talking about hiring, and then I put it in my running network. I said, guys, Walmart's doing really well, Walmart winning. And we're hiring, if you know, great product managers, engineers, and program managers. And then someone from that network, their friends reached out to me and they said, hey, I saw you run ultra marathons, and we connected that way. And then I kind of plugged them into the loop at Walmart. So those are the kinds of networking, focuses on the people, focuses on relationships, and helps you grow and helps you with not only growing your career journey or professional path, but also helps you grow personally.
Yeah. And I have to say, coming from a staffing background, like reaching out instead of just submitting your resume to the black hole is the best way. Like, if you're not using a recruiter or staffing firm and the company's not using one, then there's no reason to apply unless you're reaching out directly to the hiring manager or to someone on the team saying, hey, can you give me a warm intro to this person? Because I'm afraid my resume is going to go in a pile. Just my little soapbox. I'll get off of it right now, but I 100% agree that is the best way to do it. If you don't have an advocate when you're going into that scenario, then you're just a piece of paper coming through an AI bot that said, I didn't see it on there.
I feel like we could stay here and talk all day because I'm learning so many nuggets from you. I'm just excited. And listen, when you come back to Bentonville, let us know because we need to get together. We all need to get together and have coffee. We can have group coffee. Maybe all of y'all can come join us or however, you can do a virtual one. She just said she loves coffee. Okay, so we are getting ready to wrap up, but we always end the show because I think this is a very powerful piece of, we've heard a lot of powerful things, but I think asking each person that comes on our show to share, if you could only leave our listeners with one piece of advice, what would that be?
That's a great question and a very tough question. One piece of advice. I would say I have mantras for everything. For my running journey, for my parenting journey, for my career journey, my mantra is say yes first, then say no. Say yes, because you won't know until you try. As Sheryl Sandberg famously said, if you're offered a seat on the rocket ship, don't ask what seat, just get on.
Get on!
This
Take it to the moon.
basically says, be open. Opportunities will present yourself, but if you're not open, you're missing out. Be curious, always be learning. That's what I would say. But what about the say no part? Because we talked about time being a precious, constrained resource. We don't have the time to do everything. But once you say yes, you figure out, is this right for me? Is this aligning with my values? Can I be my true self? Can I show up with authenticity for this? And based on those answers, then you can say no. But say yes first.
I love it so much. I love the no part too, because it is true that you need to say yes, but once you have gotten in your seat and you have gotten the seat and you're at the table, learn your boundaries. So sometimes we leave that part off. So I absolutely love that. I hope you guys took notes. I'm over here like thinking to myself all the things I'm going to write down when we get off of here today. But thank you so much for joining us today. It was a phenomenal conversation. I can't wait till this is released in a few weeks to everyone so they get to hear it. To our listeners, thank you so much for consistently tuning in, listening, joining these conversations. Our goal with this podcast from the beginning was just to show up authentically, to create spaces and have conversations that maybe we don't have in boardrooms, that we don't have, in anywhere other than safe places. So I hope you come and join us and you leave with your cup full, that you leave and have learned some things and really just walk away a better person. So I hope you continue to listen. And Jordan?
Subscribe, click, leave comments, chat with us.
Yes, and you will see her information, her socials come across the screen at the end of this episode. Go follow her. I'm telling you, you're going to fangirl, fanboy, whatever. Like, seriously, she's phenomenal, and just excited to continue our journey here with all of you and with you for the next year. Thank you so much.
Well, that's a wrap. Another episode of Women in Tech Trailblazers podcast. Thanks for tuning in and sharing this time with us. If you liked what you heard, please share this episode with your friends in tech. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. Your support helps us keep bringing in inspiring guests and uncovering topics that matter to you. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries and making your mark in the tech world. Goodbye for now.